Welcome back to another episode of the Development by David podcast. This week was another in-studio podcast over at Rebel City Podcast, thanks to the wonderful Paul Shields. And today's guest is a magnificent one. It's Rich Davies. Those who live and socialise in Glasgow might be aware of the Abandon Ship bar. The bar that's been featuring everywhere online. Social media, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. But this bar and its name stemmed from an apparel brand that's been around for over a decade. Rich founded Abandon Ship Apparel 11 years ago from a bedroom with £300 and transformed it into a business that was turning over £1 million in sales revenue after year 3. Rich comes on to talk about riding that wave like it had no ceiling, which it ultimately did when the business went into liquidation. He outlays the lessons from that time and how it impacted his mental health, but more importantly, how it affected his mental model and outlook on life. And by doing so, he's turned around the Abandon Ship Apparel brand and established the Abandon Ship bar, not only in Dundee, but in Glasgow. You'll be excited to know he's opening a London Abandon Ship bar in just over a month's time. We also speak quite candidly about cultural issues too, such as the effects of healthy and toxic masculinity, toxic entrepreneurship, and Rich tells his optimal solution to goal setting. Again, just another belter of an episode. I'm so proud of this one, and I hope you enjoy it. It's a long one, but it could have been and should have been longer. Rich and I need to do a round 2. There were so many stories and anecdotes that we didn't have time to bring to life, but that will come soon. Thanks for listening again, and please do me the biggest favour and share into a work group chat or the group chat with your mates, or send to an auntie or uncle, friend, or whoever. I have some really exciting guests lined up, but for now, the wise and wonderful Rich Davies. Rich Davies, welcome to the Development by David podcast, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's a delight. I said to you via messages before we scheduled this that I followed your brand from essentially adolescent to now. I wore your garments on a skateboard, on a BMX, and now I drink in your bars. Does that ever get tiresome to hear that? Like, people have been part of that entire journey?
It makes me feel a little bit old, but minus that. No, I love it. It's great. There's customers who I've been aware of, who have been customers and followed the brand for a long time, who I've either met or I just know their usernames just from running the social media for so long. But yeah, no, I never get bored of hearing that. It's amazing that we're able to be a part of people's lives, even if it's just like dropping in and out over the last decade, just being like, oh yeah, I had a t-shirt 7 years ago, and there's the Abandoned Ship bar. I didn't know those guys were still going. I like even that kind of stuff. It's really nice. Like I still get excited when I see people wearing the t-shirts in the street. If I see a t-shirt or something in the wild, it still makes me happy.
Do you ever feel compelled to like stop them and speak to them? Like, that's my brand, that's my ethos.
I have done over the years. Like if I've had a pint in me or something, I'll like say like, oh, nice t-shirt. And like sometimes, most of the time you get like a weird look because there's not that recognition. But then other times it's if I go to a festival that's maybe more geared towards our followership, because I would say my tastes kind of resonate with the brand. Then we'll see like 20 or 30 t-shirts and people come up and speak to you, and it's really nice, and it's that's again a really enjoyable thing. But it's probably more of a time and place situation. Like I wouldn't probably stop someone in the middle of Glasgow and be like, oh, man, shit, that's me. That's my. I've never said, oh, that's my brand. Do you know who I've never done that. But like I will be like, oh, nice t-shirt.
To bring that to life, mate, we spoke about your t-shirts, talk about the bars. Who is Rich Davies today in 2021? What are you known for?
Oh, what am I known for? Who I am and what I'm known for are probably two very different things. What I'm known for at the moment is basically Abandon Ship, which I describe as sort of a 3-tier monster at this point. It's obviously the apparel, which has been going for over 10 years, which we started in 2011. Then there is the art aspect, which is myself, all the artwork I do, the murals, and I do 99% of the artwork for the brand now. And that's been going for about 5 years. And then the bars, which are the newest aspect of the business, and they've been going for 3 years, and we have one in Dundee, one in Glasgow. We're about to open Covent Garden in London, and then the plan is to open another 9 over the next 2.5 years across the UK and possibly further.
Mate, super busy. I listened to you on Friend of Friend, Johnny Rose's podcast about the embryonic stages of Abandon Ship, the apparel brand, and then what it's matured into at the point of, was it February 2020?
It was right before COVID, yeah, like before the first lockdown, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was out in his podcast. I was saying that I was a bit too relaxed, and I suspected that something was about to happen to kick me off my my comfort, kick me out of my comfort zone. And within a month, everything happened. We were supposed to open a bar in London in Camden, and we lost that unit because of lockdown, and had to change the way that the business worked, the apparel business worked. And I just moved to Glasgow, and I was living in a basement because I planned to like be out of the house all the time. So I spent the summer in a basement with 2 dogs and my wife, which luckily I like my wife, not just love her. I like her, and we had a really nice time together. But it was a lot of changes, and working from home, and not being able to be at the warehouse in Dundee because we weren't allowed to leave our house, let alone the city. So yeah, definitely it was fairly ridiculous that I said that, and then like within a month everything kind of was flipped on its head.
I really enjoyed that episode. What stood out for me in that episode though, like, was your traits of being unconventional and being very transparent as well. And I was sitting at the other edge listening to that thinking, I want to know the part before Abandon Ship a bit more. Can you tell me about like your upbringing, what you're like as a child, and you grew up in Dundee, right? What was life like back then?
Yeah. My memory's terrible, so I'll try and link in, try to remember what I can. On the transparent part, I think that's always just been something that I found is important. I'm less so outspoken about my own personal situation and my personal life now than I was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where everything was I was an open book, business and personal. Now I'm trying to sort of pull myself back a little bit, just because as I get older, I just want to have a little bit of privacy. But the business is pretty much an open book still. But from a point of view of before Abandon Ship, grew up in Dundee. I used to draw all the time when I was a kid. So I would draw like space Vikings, and I would you might be too young, and people who are listening might be too young, but you used to get those reams of printer paper that were all connected and had like the bits at the side, and I used my dad's printer paper, and I basically just draw countless pages of these like space Vikings, and they all had names and different attributes and stuff, and it was intense. And that's just like one project that probably spanned like 6 months when I was a kid. So I was just constantly drawing. Probably I always got in trouble in school for like talking too much. And then throughout my school career, I never did homework. I don't really know how I got away with that. I genuinely never did homework, like especially in the latter years. I got thrown out of my art department because I didn't like the way they were teaching it. And obviously being an arrogant, like 15, 16-year-old, I was like, I know the best way to draw and the best way to do this. And it's not true, but there was just very much a disconnect from the way that schools were teaching art and the way that I wanted to enjoy art. And even looking now, like the career that I've got now wasn't possible 20 years ago when I was in school. So I think that there was always just going to be that disconnect for me. So I purposely failed my art exam and then got thrown out of art. Like there's a written part of the exam, and I just didn't write anything on it. I just left. But it's funny now, but I just think back and I'm like, well, we asshole. We should have just it could have been so easy just to do it, and then I would have had a grade. And then I decided in my 6th year I stayed on, and in my free periods I actually created a portfolio to go to art college. And I got in. I got into university to be a primary school teacher, which would have been a very different career path for me. I deferred that, went to art college, and then I dropped out after 2 weeks because I hated it as well, because it was the exact same issue that I had with school. I thought I knew better, and they wanted me to draw oranges, and I didn't want to draw oranges, and it was just this thing. And now looking back, I go, well, what they were trying to give me was like a base level of understanding of how to draw things so that I could get better, because you can't rely on sort of natural talent. You have to sort of cultivate what you're doing, and that didn't really come to me until the last sort of 6 years, where I've been drawing pretty much every day constantly. And now I'm kind of getting to a point where I feel more and more comfortable with my art style and stuff, and maybe if I'd listened to them more, I would have come to that much earlier in my life. And at that point, when I started college, I got a job in the shoe shop, like a 4-hour contract. And then that was kind of like my introduction to going out and partying, and because all the people I worked with were a bit older than me. So I would 17, I'd go out with them all the time, and then I'd pick up all their shifts when they were hungover. So I ended up like doing like 30 to 40 hours a week on a 4-hour contract. And I was just earning a little bit of money and like just living in this like total like little bubble for a while. And then my dad had a stroke when I was 18, which was a pretty sort of massive shift in my understanding. I kind of went from a bit of a spoiled kid who had someone who could fight my battles, and I just lived in this little bubble. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like rugs pulled out from underneath me, and that kind of really affected the way that like my early 20s, because his motto was, if you're going to do something, be the best that you can at it. And I think with all that happening, I kind of took that to heart. So very quickly after that, I kind of went from, okay, well, I've got a 4-hour part-time contract right now. I want to be a manager. If I'm going to be in retail, I'll be a manager. And within 3 years, I was a store manager in London, of a shoe shop called Irregular Choice.
Okay.
Which was crazy. I just hopped from different businesses, picked up all the knowledge I could, absorbed it all, and then just went on, and then sort of got a promotion in the next business and a pay rise. And so I went from sort of part-time to full-time to sort of supervisor to assistant manager to manager across the country. I moved all over. I was in Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Glasgow, all over the place. And it's just like working 60, 70-hour weeks and drinking another 30 hours a week, and just like constantly like out, and just not really living, but just like kind of like had this like zero in on where I wanted to be, or where I thought I wanted to be. I ended up moving back from London and going on here working in retail again. But just I think I just fallen out of love with it. Yeah. So like that final year in retail, that was kind of when the beginnings of Abandon Ship started, because I was I was unhappy with in my life. I was kind of starting to realize that, you know, you can't just go out drinking all the time and work all the time. It's not really there's no balance to that whatsoever.
What do you think interrupted that phase of employment? Did you think it was like a culmination of never having control, because you were told in art school to draw this way, then you're in retail, you're selling other people's shoes, you don't have creative control either? Do you think you hit like a kind of glass ceiling in terms of how much being employed fulfilled you? Do you think you wanted to have control at that point?
I don't know. I think in my early 20s I was very arrogant, and I didn't really think of it that way. I think I just saw it as an escape. And even in retail, it was very similar to in art school. I thought I knew better. I thought I should be at the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. I was running before I was walking. And it's funny because I see those traits in people that I work with now, or even conversations I have with people. And I see the faults in that now. And it's funny because obviously at the time you don't want to listen to your older peers and take it all in. But now I kind of see it and go, well, yeah, you need to sort of slow down. You need to learn this. Yeah, you probably could do the next step, but actually there's a benefit of taking your time and understanding things. And now when I look at it, when I look at anything, I go, well, I need to at least do something for a year, because I need to like be able to see what happened last year. I need like a year on year sort of take on it, especially in sort of retail or in business. You need to be able to see what you did last year so you can beat it. So realistically, you need 2 or 3 years of anything to do that. And I think the funny thing is that some people might argue, but for me, I found that I lost a lot of that arrogance when I started Abandon Ship. Like it felt that like there was something to finally be proud of, and it actually kind of humbled me to a point where I was kind of not sure how to take that success. And then ultimately with the liquidation, which we'll obviously catch up to in a bit, but that humbled me a second time in a much bigger way again, and made everything a bit more real. So it was just this kind of constant learning curve of going, okay, well, no, I don't know everything. Okay, well, now I've learned a mistake and I've learned a lesson and actually kind of grown from it.
Where was the seeds of Abandon Ship placed, and what was your first initial kind of experiences with the brand like?
So at the time of starting it, I was living with my original business partner, Duncan, and we were flatmates. And basically he was the the PR manager for the Cat House
Yeah.
in Glasgow. So he had a PR and design background, and I had the retail background. And he was he did some merch for the Cat House, so he had some contacts, and he was talking about starting a brand. And me and him were best friends, and still very good friends now. And we lived together, obviously, so we drank together a lot, and like we would talk about stuff. And neither of us were particularly happy where we were at that time. He was a bit older than I was. He's 5 years older than me, so he was kind of coming up to the end of where like it's fun to like be the PR for a nightclub. And I was burned out in retail, and like it just kind of spawned from these drunken conversations of, yeah, we should do t-shirts. Yeah, we've got this idea. Yeah, we've got this, and like building it all over countless drinks. Until it got to the point where really we just had to either go, you know what, we stopped talking about it, or we just do it. So we put £150 in each, started with £300. We set up a .com. We came up with a name. We came up with 3 designs. I had these like 3 designs in my head, and he designed them, and like I would be like over his shoulder being like, oh, can you just make this a little bit different, do this? And we bought 25 of each of those t-shirts from printers that we still use in Glasgow. And so I still have a relationship with the printers and the suppliers 10 years later. And yeah, we started all that. We pretended that we were a bigger deal than we were. This is before Instagram, so Tumblr was the big thing. And we just put the t-shirts out. And our first sale was in America, which is wild because we didn't even know how to ship anything to the UK, let alone America. And then yeah, those t-shirts kind of picked up, and we sold all 75 of those t-shirts, and we used that money to buy another 100 t-shirts. Then we did the same. We just built up organically over that first year.
Why t-shirts though? Like, did you see a gap in the market and you wanted to create clothing that you wanted to wear that didn't already exist, or was it just a side hustle where you could make some money?
It was we weren't thinking about money at all. It was honestly, there was just a passion there that so at the time, without going into too much detail, at the time there was kind of like 2 different schools of t-shirts that we were into. It was either band t-shirts, which were very artist driven but like very complicated, and like you had to like look at them closely to get what was going on. Or there was streetwear, which was kind of like starting to like really build up a bit of steam in the UK. So you had like the likes of like Rebel 8 and Only and Obey and stuff like that, who were coming through, who were all like very like branding heavy. And our big thing when we started, and I guess to a lesser extent, it's always kind of run through the business, is that we wanted to create iconic t-shirts that were instantly recognizable from 100 feet away, but didn't rely on branding. We wanted it to be like, that's a cool t-shirt and you know what it is without getting too close to it, but also not just be like, yeah, let's rely on the brand. It was always about the art and the design first and foremost. And that's still, if you look at the collection now, or look at the collection at any point in our history, apart from maybe like 1 year, 6 years ago, we barely had any logo t-shirts in the collection. It's all based on artwork, and it's all based on that kind of creating a emphatic sort of message through the apparel.
I've noticed that too. How much of the designs and the garments that you've produced and other products like alongside the t-shirts, how much of that has been relying on feedback from customers and your peer group, or have you just literally steamrolled it and created what you think is visually appealing?
Oh, I 100% steamroll it like 90% of the time. I make stuff that I want to wear or I want to design. It's as simple as that. Like, I do listen to customers because there is a level that you have to, but there's always a sense of vocal minority, which has the most evident example of that is people have consistently and constantly asked for kids wear. And I've done kids wear so many times, and it never sells, and it always gets discounted. And I hate putting things into discount, into promotion or sale, and so it's always stressful. And every year people ask for it at Christmas, and I always just go, "Yeah, I'll do it." And it always fails. And it's that thing of going, okay, well, yes, you can listen to people, but just because say 10 people have said they want something doesn't mean that it's actually going to do anything. You have to trust yourself and what you think will work or what you want to make. And yeah, I've made loads of mistakes. Like, some stuff I thought wouldn't sell, and it's still available because it's a bestseller, like constantly. Like, our Never Found t-shirt, I drew that as a warm-up sketch before I was doing something else. I posted on social media just to have something to post, and it went crazy. And I was like, right, cool, okay, it's online, sorry. I listened to people then because that's like thousands of likes on a picture that I thought was just like a throwaway idea. And then other stuff I've loved and I've known it's not going to work, but I just wanted it to exist, even for me. And then there's stuff like we're doing Hawaiian shirts now, and I live in Hawaiian shirts in the summer, like unless like now it's in the winter, so it's a bit colder. But like if I can wear a Hawaiian shirt, I will. So to design my own Hawaiian shirts, there's a part of me that doesn't even really care if they sell. I just wanted those to exist just so I have them. And I think that when you're creating something that you believe in and that you love, that resonates through. And even if it's not for everyone, people can still understand, or there's still an aesthetic that might be sort of wildly changing, but it still kind of holds to like a core sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Like Abandon Ship has done a lot of crazy stuff over the years and a lot of different things. And like we made cookbooks and blankets and t-shirts and full kit and tracksuits and all this stuff. We've done all that stuff. But I think that realistically, there is a thread through that you can see, you can tell it's an Abandon Ship piece.
At what point did the business start booming? Was it after those first 20, was it 25 items after the initial £300 worth of investment? Is that when it just catalyzed, or did it take a couple of years until it got to the magnitude that it ultimately did? Looking at it that way, we were exceptionally lucky that we started that way and there was an instant take up on it, and because it could have gone the other way very easily. We were just in a really good position that Duncan and I were able to capitalize on that luck. He knew how to do the PR and like we could focus on the designs. He had a camera because this was before like really good camera phones. And I had a lot of tattoos, so it was easy for me to be the model. I'm still the model, even though I hate getting my photo taken, because it's just easier sometimes. So like there was all these things that just like aligned and they just made sense, and we were young enough and hungry enough, and it was like sort of everything came together perfectly. Like I don't think I could start the business the way it is again now. It just was lucky mixed with skill and past experience. But then with Abandon Ship, I guess the real kind of tipping point for me was in January of 2012. So like sort of 10 months after, I quit my job and went to Abandon Ship full time. And then the first week we managed to get a window campaign in a nationwide store. So we had like a big like backdrop, and like our t-shirts were on mannequins in the window. And that was really when I felt that this is the tipping point. This is going to be a thing. Because I had to take a massive pay cut to quit my job and do Abandon Ship because we didn't have any money in the bank. So we had to work out what I could live off of. So I like went down like half my wage overnight to go and like follow this dream. And I moved to Leicester because my wife had got a job in Leicester's, and I followed her. So I ran Abandon Ship for a year from the attic room in a house in Leicester that I didn't know anyone in the city, and I couldn't drive at the time. I learned to drive while I was there, and it was all these, and it was just crazy. And it was just like, yep, cool, I'll move to Leicester and I'll take less wage and I'll just be in the city and I'll just sit in my attic every day and like email people about t-shirts and like post stuff on social media. And it was just looking back, it's crazy. It was just constant. It was like a snowball effect. Is that what kept you humble during the times where you would see your own brand in a high street window? Like having that down to earth experience of still living in an attic in Leicester, not knowing anyone. Is that how you remained humble, because you still had this kind of minimalistic, hungry entrepreneur lifestyle, even though your brand was in high street windows? I think so. I think it was just because we felt like we were faking it till we make it. So it was like anything and everything was, and it was all just so rapid and intense that I think it was just like, oh, I don't know if we're capable of doing this. Like it was such a steep learning curve that there was no time to like be arrogant about it. It was like, oh shit, okay, on to the next thing. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, what are we gonna do now? And I just didn't really feel like there was time to really kind of to think about that or to sort of. It took me a while to even like sit back and like actually like look back on those days and be like, oh, okay, that was fun. There was a lot of fun stuff to it, but it was just very like intense constantly. At what scale did it grow to at that point? So I think by year 3 we had like a turnover of over 1 million.
from £300.
What the heck?
I know it was honestly it was wild because we were in ASOS and we were in Topman and we were in Foot Asylum, and it was like we were like sort of nationwide, and we were traveling and doing trade shows across the world, and like we did photo shoots in New York and Iceland and Thailand, and because we had no idea what we were doing. Like now I'm going like those first 5 years I've got nothing financial to show for it. But I was in my mid-20s and I was just like, yeah, I want to go to Thailand and take photos of t-shirts. That sounds amazing. And you know what? It was amazing. I wouldn't give up any of that. But it was just like, it was just wild. It was just like, there was no understanding that there's a ceiling to this. Like it was like someone had given us the cheat code to Sims, and you're just like, let's fucking go. Let's just keep doing it. And it was amazing. Like we were out, like, cause that was like sort of, not that wasn't like my biggest partying time, but it was like partying with a reason. Like we're going to the trade show in Berlin, and they're like, "Oh, those are the Scottish guys. They party." And we're like, "Yeah, we party." And we're drunk for 4 days selling t-shirts. Like I was in Vegas once and woke up late for the trade show and went downstairs, and I did an £11,000 deal, still absolutely hammered. And I'm like, how did we get away with that stuff? It's crazy. Like this, honestly, it's there's like a million stories like that, and like. I don't even remember half of them. Like people like remind me of something. I'm like, oh yeah, crap, we did that. I was like, but like at the same time though, like me and Duncan, we were topping and tailing in tiny hotel rooms and double beds because we couldn't afford to have like 2 hotel rooms at like points, because we were just like it wasn't like we were still being like very frugal, like up until a point where then we had like 20 members of staff. So we had like wage bills and stuff. And you're like, so you're going, yeah, cool. That 11 grand deal will kind of keep us going for another month, and we will do this and this. So it's just there was just a lot of extremes and a lot, like as I say, a lot of learning curves.
That's so wild. Did you still have creative control at that point when it was that much of a monster, when you were in ASOS and High Street?
So I described my first 5 years of the business, I described myself as the director of making money. Like it was my job to basically make sure that money was coming in, because that was my background. Duncan was more to do with the design side of it. So for the first 5 years, he did a lot of the design work, and sort of he was up in Glasgow when I was in Leicester, and like we went on the road together a lot. But like my background was the retail, the wholesale. Then I would be working with artists, so I would source out artists and be like, this is the concept, do you want to do it? And then doing like the cut and sew. My wife came on and helped us eventually with like all the cut and sew stuff. So we were like getting all this like crazy stuff made. And yeah, it was I basically just saw my job as just kind of continuing to make things work. And I think that after the liquidation, when it was just myself for a long time, that really was a benefit, because I was someone who just wore a lot of hats already, but like I had a team below me before the liquidation. After that, it was just really myself and like one other person. I had to take it right back to the beginning again. And it was quite good, because you kind of employ all these people, because as you grow, you go, I can't do that job anymore. I need to focus on the bigger picture. So you put someone in that position, and they're maybe not doing it the best way, or you're not giving them enough training to like get them to be the best they can be. So you kind of start losing a little bit of like the small stuff, but you don't want to be like managing everyone, because you've got all these bigger things to do. And it was a lot. Like I was still like in full control of everything that was going on, like making decisions like every day, like working 60-hour weeks or 70-hour weeks or 80-hour weeks, or working every minute of every day. I never really switched off. But it did get away from us, or got away from me, definitely towards the end of that period.
You said that you were treating life or treating the lifestyle of Abandon Ship at the time like it had no ceiling. Like, yes. What became the ceiling?
So basically, year 5, we had some problems with a distributor that had been working for us, and basically, I had a system of how the wholesale basically made the money for the online. So we didn't necessarily make a lot of profit off of the wholesale business, but the wholesale business provided the cash flow and the means to create the products for the online store. So the online store was basically how we made profit. And without going into all, because obviously it's not about like the actual nuts and bolts of a business, but basically the way that we were doing wholesale, the wholesalers wanted more and more discount, or people were taking bigger chunks of that money. So the way that we were funding the online was becoming more and more limited. And then as that happened, we were struggling to like make ends meet. So we were then enacting sales or promotions to try and get fast cash flow, because you're like, I need to make 10 grand today to pay bills. Cool. How do we do that? Right. Let's just do a flash sale. And
did that hurt to do that? Because you said you didn't want to ever discount your products because it
well,
tarnished the brand.
That's a symptom of that period, because at the time you're not thinking about the changes that you're making to your business. Like you're devaluing your entire brand by constantly going to sale, because if you're selling a t-shirt for £30 and someone knows that next month that's going to be £15, then why would they buy it at £30? It doesn't make sense. And it was a vicious cycle, and basically the business just wasn't operational at that point, because we just hit a ceiling. I tried to take over the world for the first 5 years of that business, and I realized that it wasn't going to happen. Like we just kept hitting stumbling blocks, or we kept putting money into things that were trying to push it to the next level. And again, a symptom of that is me realizing that it's more important to create a sustainable business and maybe create your own world and your own ecosystem than it is to try and take over the world, or to make whatever you think the idea of success is at that point. And that's why I think that at the time, the liquidation was the hardest thing that I ever went through. It was very traumatic. Like it affected me for a really long time. But looking back at it now with hindsight and a bit of distance, and knowing what I know now and where the business is at now, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to the business, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me as a business person.
Why?
Because it taught me that there are consequences, and it taught me to really understand the nuances of the business and create something that maybe is going to last longer and be sustainable and make sense and be what I want it to be, rather than try and make something be the biggest or what other people think is the best, and to not be honest to myself. Like, and the idea of going back to 60 or 70 hour weeks, or the idea of going back to 40-hour weeks for me now is just not appealing. Like I always had the thing of work smarter, not harder. And I lost my way for a long time with it. And when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize until you come out the other side, and you're like, oh, and then you see photos of yourself and you're like, wow, I was burned out. I looked like a skeleton, like bags under my eyes constantly. It wasn't, and then mental health. And you go, well, you were just running on empty. You were either like out drinking for business, or you were in work every day. And it just wasn't a good lifestyle. And I think that for a lot of people who do their own stuff or entrepreneurial, even just want to sort of think that they have to get ahead in life and climb a ladder, like it's very easy to get stuck into that way of life and not realize that it's actually detrimental to your health.
Even now, I see you on Instagram. After a long day's work, you'll be in your bar having a pint, or you'll be socializing. Do you subscribe to that modern day entrepreneurial narrative of work till your eyes fall out, sleep 4 hours and work the rest? Like,
no. I had a nap before I came here. I nap most days. No, the way I explain it to people and to my team is that I will work every hour under the sun to achieve a goal, but that goal has to be set. It has to be a realistic goal, and it can't be an ongoing thing. Set a goal for a month. Okay, cool. I want to achieve this. I wanted to make that. I'd create a tarot deck over the last 3 years. I had a deadline that I set for myself in January. So during the last lockdown over Christmas and January, I was drawing for 10 hours a day to get it done. That's fine, because it was a goal. I achieved it. I rested. That's how it has to be. Your day-to-day life, especially now that I'm overseeing the apparel from a little bit of a distance, and I'm really focusing on the art and the creative direction of the bar, it's better for me to be less busy, because I can actually take a step back and actually create better pieces of work and have better ideas for those businesses than if I'm just in the weeds all the time, just thinking about the things that other people can do for the business. And I think that's important. I think I definitely like that, but that's come with years of hard work and years of like mistakes and learning. And like I'm in I'm in a privileged position that I had a great upbringing and I had a support system and I could go at it. And it's very easy for me to sort of sit here at almost 35 after a decade of work and go, yeah, I nap and I only work 20 hours a week and I can have time to step back. Like, it took a lot to get to this point, and like I'd never take it for granted, and I know that it is a place of privilege, because I think that some people who like the 4-hour work week and stuff, I think that a lot of that is nonsense, in the sense of, if you wanted to start a clothing brand today, you wouldn't be able to just sit back and do 20 hours a week. You'd have to do more than that. But that's where it comes down to setting goals and understanding that and taking the time off and managing that properly.
I'm glad to have the opportunity for you to outlay that journey on the podcast, because people might look at you now and see these sprints, rest, or they might only see the rest. Do you think it's like a way of passage for entrepreneurs now to earn their stripes and do those 70, 80-hour work weeks so they can get to a point? Or do you think you can create a business much like yours from a kind of less full-on, less accelerated approach?
It really depends on what the person wants from that business. I'm happy with where the business is at the moment. When I say the business, I mean the apparel business, because I'm the owner and director of that business solely. That business could make more money. Like, it could have a higher turnover. I'm happy with where it is at the moment. It pays enough for me to pay my mortgage, to have the life that I want, and to pay my staff a good wage, and for them to have the life they want. And that's all I really matter about. I get to make what I want to make, and I get to have fun doing it. I could go back to 40 or 60 hour work weeks, and I could probably double my revenue. I don't want to. Like, I've done that, and I've seen how that goes, but that's my journey. That's my decision. That's not everyone else's. Other people will want to make more, or they may need to make more. I just think that it's a symptom of humans to want more and to persevere. And people's idea of success is based around capitalism, which is terrible for me to say because all my businesses are based on capitalism, because that's how business works. But at the end of the day, we should find balance and happiness in where we are, and we should understand what level that is. And I don't know if I've found it yet. Like, I'm very happy with where I am at the moment. That might change. But I'm going into sort of the second half of my life feeling that I know what I want to get from that. And that's not working all the time. And it's not necessarily having like a fancy car and multiple houses and all this stuff. It's having what I would like and having a good life with my wife. Did
you create that mental model and this behavior change when the liquidation happened?
It wasn't when the liquidation happened. It took me years after that. So a lot of the feelings for the first 18 months after the liquidation, which is coming up for 6 years in January that happened. So the first 18 months were very much just beating myself up, like imposter syndrome, like hating myself, just not trusting myself either. And it took me a long time to get out of that. And then I fell into the bad habits of working too hard again and trying to build this like impenetrable structure of like where I wanted to be and make sure that it would never happen again. I've got multiple revenue avenues coming in so that I can, if something fails, I've always got a way to look after myself and my family. And again, it took me leaving my other business, Hard Grind, in 2018 to really kind of give myself that, to look at myself again. And because at that point I had 2 barbershops, a coffee shop. We were about to open the bar. I had a retail space as well. I had the warehouse, and I was building something in Dundee. And my plan was I joked to be the mayor of Dundee, like build this. I was trying to build this like little ecosystem of like retail and like an experiential shops and stuff like this. And then it was all just gone overnight almost. And that kind of really kind of gave me another sort of shake up. That was probably another thing that was very difficult for me at the time, but it was another very important and pivotal moment in my business career. Because I kind of went, oh, okay, I've just poured my heart and soul into this for a couple of years and it's gone. And I'm not actually that mad about it going. Like, I was building this up, but what was really my end goal? Why was I doing this? Like, I had this idea of this will benefit me when I'm 40. And I'm like, well, I'm 32, 33. why am I taking away from my life now to have this safety net at 40, which isn't necessarily going to happen. So it's not until the last 3 years that I've really like gone back and gone, well, let's actually think about what I want from life and what I actually want to achieve. And it was a year of sadness after leaving Hard Grind. There was a year of me, I decided to go traveling like and do loads of events all over the world before lockdown. And I just spent a lot of time sad in hotel rooms. It's just a whole different thing. Like you're trying to prove something to yourself, but you need to just like take some time to actually like understand the symptoms of why you're feeling like a way. And it took me a while, and it's only really, and it's, you know what, lockdown again is like one of the main things that really kind of got me to realize, and to like reinforce these things that I've always felt throughout my career, and just like really like zone in on it. And that's come with a confidence in my older age. That's come with, you know, getting to know myself better, like communicating better with the people I love, going to therapy. Like there's a lot of things that I've been doing to sort of understand myself better and understand what I want, and to be happy in myself and happy in what I'm creating.
Hearing your journey, it sounds like you tied happiness to achievement, and you were enjoying what the process brought you, not the process itself at the time. Now that you have had you've got a wife, you've got your bars, you're well established again. Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning if it's not materialism anymore?
It's creating. I love to create. I love to draw, and when I say create, I don't just mean draw and then design. I mean the Glasgow bar is a piece of artwork in itself. Well, for one, there's 150 square meters of artwork that I hand drew on it, but even just having the opportunity to be a part of that team and watching Astrid and Amanda, who did the interiors, and that all come together, and then the team creating these beautiful meals and drinks, and just the environment as itself, it's amazing to just go, yeah, this whole experience, this whole thing exists. Like that's what excites me. It excites me to create and to see other people enjoy what I've created. And I think that however that pans out over the next 20 years for me, it won't always be bars, it won't always be art, but there'll always be something there that I love. I love creating and sharing. Because you're right. At this point, I bought a house during lockdown, which I'm happy with, and I plan to be there for forever. Like I'm in a solid relationship, got my dogs, I have naps. I don't really need a lot more. Like I enjoy going out. Like once we can start traveling again, I'm looking forward to traveling again. Because that was a big part of my life before lockdown. But yeah, that's it. It's really just sort of that creating. And again, I know that comes from a place of privilege of like, I get to get up every morning and create. Like I spent the last 2 days painting canvases in my studio, and I'm like, that's amazing. That's amazing that I get to do that. I'm incredibly lucky that I get to do that. And that's the exciting thing for me. It's going, oh, what am I going to do today? Like what's coming out of my head? Like what will happen? It's really exciting.
That sounds like it could be either empowering, which it seems for you, or paralyzing. How do you kind of structure your week ahead if you're at the locus of control of everything?
I don't structure it massively. Like it depends. I go through like phases of like being very routine driven. Like in the summer, I'm usually up at 5 or 6 o'clock every morning, and I get up and shower and dress and do the dishes and like think about my day, and then I work from the studio for the first few hours of the day. But usually by sort of like 11 or 12, I'm either done with everything I need to do work wise, and then the rest of the day is either artwork or socializing or going to the bars or meetings and stuff like that. So it's never anything too structured, even like on a structured day. And then like last week there was I had an event on Thursday night, and on the Wednesday before that, I took the team from the warehouse out for a night out, because we haven't had a night out in a while, and they hadn't seen the Glasgow bar, so I brought them through for Glasgow and with their partners, and we had like a nice night out. And then on the Thursday, went to Dundee and celebrated my business partners opening their nightclub that they opened before lockdown, and then it hasn't opened since lockdown. So like it's all like kind of adding those little bits in, and like I'm 35 next month, so my hangovers aren't as good as they used to be. So that kind of has to build into it, and have to make sure that everything's lined up. But yeah, I don't structure it massively. Like sometimes I feel like I'm behind, and sometimes I feel like I'm ahead. The big thing for me next year is that I've just promoted my team in the Abandon Ship Apparel. So I've got an operations manager now and a warehouse manager. I'm about to hire someone else. And my mum's my bookkeeper. So basically the day-to-day operations of the business, I'm going to completely step away from. So I'll have a meeting on a Monday and everything that needs to be done within the business will be done by my team because I trust them. They've worked with me for a few years now. And I believe that they're more than capable of doing it. And I think that they'll bring something to the table that I maybe wouldn't, because after doing this for a decade, I can get quite lazy with like, that won't work, I've done it before, or oh, I know how to do this, it's fine, I'll do this. Whereas when you bring someone who in and to enroll, they'll innovate and they'll try things and they want to put their stamp on it. And then that's interesting because they'll come and to me and ask me questions about it. And I'm like, I've never thought about that. That's great, because a big part of business is working with people who are better than you.
Yep.
And giving them the freedom to really excel, to make their own mistakes, to trust them to do that stuff. And that's something I learned with working with the bars. Because in the bars, I'm not the only director in the business. I'm the creative director. So I deal with the things that I'm good at. The artwork, the designs, the sort of the lifestyle aspects of the business. We have an operations director and we have a managing director. So I'm not at the top of the pecking order either. And I've really enjoyed that after being sort of the managing director of a business and the owner of a business for the last decade. It's nice to have a team and to work with people. And that's really showed me that, yeah, work with people who are better at things and know things, and you can complement each other.
One thing that stands out for me, reflecting on the liquidation of the business, now that obviously the tables have turned again and business is booming, how do you trust yourself to build a team knowing that you've had that period before and whatever happens in the future can have a reciprocal effect on the team, now knowing that the team is such a big part of your life and the future plans of the business?
Yeah,
how can you have trust in yourself for others to have trust in you?
Well, for sure. And like, I think that you have to accept that you make mistakes. You have to remove ego from those mistakes. You have to hold your hand up and go, yeah, I fucked up. And that's as simple as that. It's a conversation that I actually had with my warehouse manager the other day. We were saying it's weird. It's weird when you start thinking about it, when people get defensive when you speak to someone about something, or there's a mistake. Like, we're all adults. I'm not getting anyone in trouble. Like, that's not how it should work. Like, we should be able to have an adult conversation about something. So when people do get defensive or sarcastic or something, or like back at you, you go, well, why is that? Why are you reacting that way? Is it something that you have an issue with me? Is it an issue with yourself? And like, just having that conversation with someone is really good. And then, but having that conversation, having that understanding of yourself is really important, because I can sit here and go, yeah, you know what? That won't happen again. It might. I'm going to do everything in my power to not let it happen again. In the last 3 years of Abandon Ship Apparel, we've seen consistent growth year on year, and consistent growth in profit year on year during a particularly hard time in the industry. And that's down to my experience and my knowledge. And that's not being arrogant. I've done my time. I've worked in retail for a long time. We took everything back to square one 3 years ago, and we rebuilt the way we do it. And we looked at it properly, and we look at all the facts and figures now. So now bringing Matt, who's my operations manager, and he's been an integral part to that. So he's helped me grow that business. And there is, he sees the value in the business continuing down that path for his own development and for his own success, and also for the business. And yeah, we might have bad months, but I'm now looking at the bigger picture and going over the year, or the 6 months to a year, and going, okay, well, yeah, you know what? We had a bad day. It's not about bad days anymore. It's about good months, good periods. It's about that. And it's about being smart and not necessarily always overreaching. Like, sometimes you have to go for it, and you have to like put yourself sort of on the line. Like, at the moment, we're going into Christmas. Like, this is the time for us to buy a lot of stock and to like really push ourselves out there. So yeah, it's a bit tight at the moment, but if we didn't do that, then we'd get to Christmas and we wouldn't have stock to make the money that we need to make. So you have to make those decisions, and you have to take those risks, but they have to be calculated risks, and you have to see an out. And we're having everyone's having a bad October at the moment. I don't know if people are looking at the way I look at it, everyone's in sale at the moment constantly. Like, you'll get emails every single day about promotions and sales. That's because everyone is screwed, because everyone saw a massive increase in sales last year when everyone was stuck in their house. Now everyone's going out drinking again and partying. So they're spending money elsewhere. So now all these businesses have spent more money on stock because they're trying to beat their last year's figures. Whereas it's not happening. So they're now having to get rid of a lot of stock, offload a lot of stock to get new stock in to make money to pay bills. So we're in a position where we're not doing sales, we're not doing promotions. So it's a tight month for the moment, but it's fine because by the end of January, we'll be fine again. We'll be laughing because I've built that structure into it. But that comes with a decade's worth of knowledge.
Knowing that the social trends were moving away from online retail and retail to socializing because of post-COVID environments, was that part of your rationale for starting a Glasgow Abandon Ship bar?
No, it's my, I knew it was coming. I expected the drop off in May actually, but the drop off has happened in September. But no, the bars are actually quite, it's not funny, but we opened the first bar in Dundee, and that came about because I was drinking in my now business partner's bars, and then became friends with the bartenders, became friends with the bar managers, and became friends with him. I'd always joked I wanted to open a bar as my retirement plan, and over the last the year before that, it was kind of like I started to really seriously think that it could be the best thing that could happen for the business, because the bits I liked about the retail side of it was always the parties and interacting with people, and it just made sense in my head that Abandon Ship should be that 24/7. Like the lifestyle that we built on social media and through the brand and the events and the parties could turn into a business, like a bar and a business. And Phil was up for it. So we tried it and it worked. And then sort of a bit after that, I was having a really bad time with Abandon Ship. Actually, 2.5 years ago, I was about a month away from closing the apparel down. I just wasn't happy. I just didn't see a future that I wanted to do. Like I just felt like I'd come to the end of the road with Abandon Ship Apparel. And I luckily I didn't make any rash decisions. As I said, I was going to give myself 2 months. I was going to sort everything out financially, just get it all tied up and just see where I'm at. I was sober for those 2 months as well. I decided to go on a health kick, and I go through phases of not drinking for a month or 2 months at a time, which is a whole control thing in itself, which is it's not as healthy as it sounds. It's a whole different thing. But I decided I was like, I'll make the decision sober. I'll make the decision as healthy as I can, healthy mind, healthy body, make that decision. And I fell back in love with the business again. And then at that time, Phil was like, you know what? I think that we could do these bars across the whole of the UK. Like this, I see this as being the thing that we could do. And it all kind of came about, and it was quite funny and quite weird that it kind of happened that way, because there was this tipping point that I actually applied for another job. Like I was like, oh, maybe it's time for me to go work with someone else. I applied for a job at Vans, because my friend works for Vans, and he was in Switzerland, and I was like, oh, yeah, I think I could take what I've learned over the last sort of 7 or 8 years and apply it to a bigger business. I think that could be my next step in my journey. And luckily, I never heard back from them. Obviously, I wasn't that good. And I gave myself that time, and during that time, Phil mentioned that to me, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Okay, let's give it a go. And then, yeah, that was it. That was kind of that was a turning point, another turning point in my career for me. I was like, okay, let's do this, but I want to do it on my terms. And I think at that point, I just got to the point where I'd just been doing t-shirts for a really long time. And again, lockdown helped because it really made me think about other things to do. Like I made the cookbook during that period, and we were doing whiskey glass sets and just these different things. I was like, you know what? At this point in my life, those are more things that I'm into and more interesting to me than maybe necessarily just being all t-shirts. I think I just needed to find that spark. Like any relationship, working with a business or having a business for so long, you do fall in and out of how you feel about it. And that just kind of was that point. But our plan for the bars is to open 10 across the UK in the next few years.
Wow.
So we've got a 2.5 year plan. So we're going to be opening London at the end of the year, and then hopefully Leeds at the beginning of next year.
How will you manage to have consistent ethos between the apparel brands and then those 10 bars? How can you allow the brand to bleed into them all?
That is a difficult thing, and that's something that I already am thinking about, because the apparel business and the bar business are already two very different businesses in the way that the way that everything works, and that's because there's different directors and different people manage different ways, and different people have different ways of doing stuff. So that's something that I'm already aware of, and there will be there will have to always be a little bit of a separation between the two. I'm finding that I'm actually aligning the apparel a little bit more with the bars than maybe the other way around. With the bars, the bars have kind of reignited sort of my old sort of ethos of like, we have fun, we create. It's like it's a happy and fun, positive environment. Like, we're sharing positivity and experience. Whereas for a period in between, I was talking a lot about my like own mental health journey, talking about sort of social issues and sort of and having that sort of like, maybe there was like a level of anger in it. Whereas, and I'm like, that's not necessarily what the brand needs to be or should be. So it's actually been quite enjoyable to kind of take a step back and go, well, no, let's be a force of good. Let's be a force of positivity and enjoyment, rather than necessarily like we can help people that way, as well as shining lights on sort of mental health and stuff, because we have done so much work with that. And we still will continue with the slogans like not everything sucks and stuff like that. That's obviously in massive neons above the bar. But I think from my point of view, for that, like when you're talking about 10 venues, yeah, I can't be in every I can't be in every venue all the time, and the team will get bigger, and some messages might get lost, but at its core, it still will just be that experiential, like fun, positive environment.
I think for me, what made it so apparent that the apparel brand and the bar were under the same entity or the same ethos was the people that work within it.
Mm-hmm.
I told you I went out a night out after with some of your bar staff after
Yeah.
their shift, and although they were very different people, they were all like in a similar vibe. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
They had huge humility. They were really caring and kind. They'd buy rounds. They were all amazing humans. When you recruit bar staff and bar managers, do you have like certain guiding principles that you look for in them that are linked to the brand?
Well, firstly, we're incredibly lucky with the teams that we've got on the apparel side of it and on the bar side of it. And as I said, like the reason that we started opening the bars is because I became friends with the people in the bars, and like that's something that I've always really loved about bars. Like especially when I go across to America, like the way that American bars operate, and like you sort of become pals with the bartenders and stuff like that. That's something that we kind of tried to bring over to the apparel side, the bar side.
So what you're telling me is that you paid your bar staff to go on a night out with me afterwards?
No. What I'm saying is that the McMary, who is my business partner Phil's business, that was how I was introduced to the bars. I fell in love with their bars because they had those team members, and a lot of those team members work with Abandon Ship, or most of them are still in the business now. So we are incredibly lucky, and I think that definitely in Dundee, it was Dundee's such a small city that it was very easy to cultivate these amazing teams. Glasgow, we're obviously still very new to the Glasgow, but yeah, the guys who are hiring for us, they've been in and around the McMary business for a long time, so they know what that sort of like what that person is. Like you can teach most people the skills that you need to work in these venues, but like that like level of attention to customers, or just like that, as you said, humility or just genuine niceness is something that like, yeah, definitely we look for. And that's why when you were asking about 10 venues, I was like, you know what, I hope that we have 10 venues full of people like that, but until we get there, we won't know, because it's having a couple of venues to having 10 venues is a very different machine, and being in different cities is a very different machine. So yes, that's what we want across the entire board. We want people in our business who might not necessarily know everything about Abandon Ship. Like actually when we're hiring for Glasgow, we weren't really looking for like super fans or like customers or anything like that. We were looking for people who more so had the characteristics that you mentioned, but we could sort of teach them about Abandon Ship. And I think when we go to like somewhere like Leeds or something like that, they don't need to know like the Abandon Ship was started in 2011 and this and this and this. They don't need to read from a sheet. They just need to be nice people and nice to customers, and have genuine conversations and interactions with customers. Because one of my favorite things to do is still to sit at one of the bars and just talk on a Tuesday night when it's quiet, and just talk to the bartenders and like talk to the team, and just relax, because I love it. Like, that's one of the things I love about Dundee, is that I can go to any one of the bars that my business partner has, and I'll always have a friend there, and I can always just have a drink and just relax, and it's really nice. And that's hopefully what we'll have when we go across the UK.
On the flip side to that question, is there a specific type of clientele or customer that you want in your bar?
No, we are inclusive to everyone. I want everyone to be part of the party. I genuinely mean that. Like, we're seeing so many new faces come to Glasgow, the Glasgow bar, who probably don't even know that Abandon Ship Apparel exists. And I love it. It's just so exciting to see people interact with this space for the first time. Like, there's not, as far as I'm aware, there's no other bars anywhere that I've had that level of artwork on the walls and that weirdness that I've kind of brought to it. And I love watching people just like look at the ceiling and be like, what does that mean? And like reading all the weird stuff that I wrote like 5 a.m. in the morning when I was designing it, and like posting about it. And it's just amazing, because the clientele who are in Glasgow are probably quite different to the clientele in Dundee. And when we go to London, it'll be the same again. But no, I don't want anyone to think that they can't be part of the party, because in the past people maybe thought that, oh no, you have to have tattoos to be in there, or you have to be this or that. And I'm like, it's not that. Like, I like tattoos. A lot of the artwork is inspired by tattoos, but that's not a thing that I've ever considered to be a statement of being cool or not. This was my decision. Like, beyond that, it doesn't affect how I think about people.
I've barely been out your bars over the last few weeks, mate. I've been back in the office and I've been socialising with mates in Glasgow that I've not seen in so long in your bars. And the first thing everyone looks at is the ceiling, because one of the examples I think is, I heard aliens abducted you but gave you back because you're a gobshite. Like, I couldn't stop laughing at that, and I felt compelled to send a picture to my group chat. Was those provocative statements intentional so people would look up, take a picture, post it on social media, gain traction? Is that where you're like?
It's not necessarily about social media, but it was definitely intentional to make people like laugh and to like look at the ceiling and stuff. Because the progression of my mural work was like creating like this like sort of like sprawling canvas of like different pieces that, like, when you look at it, your eyes don't focus on any one particular bit, and then like you'll zoom in and see something. You see something new all the time. And that's how it started. And it was like, I wasn't sedate, but it was a bit more like sort of positive, like good vibes only, not everything sucks, like just a bit more like that. And that's still a lot of the way I do it for like maybe clients and for like sort of other bits and pieces, like drawing like big sharks and wolf heads and stuff like that, which there's lots of them in the bar anyway. But when we came to the Dundee bar, that was a bit different, because I was very, very aware that people are going to be in there spending a lot of time in there and drinking. And I was like, you know what, let's have some fun with this. So just like writing things that didn't really make sense, or like would be like, or like in jokes or anything like that. Like, there's something on the Abandon Ship bar that says like Turnip King. I don't know what the Turnip King is. I just wrote it, and I was just, but you see people, and from that, when people came in, because obviously we've been open almost 3 years. So like I spent a lot of time in that bar just watching people like laugh, and it's people of all ages, like just like random people just like looking and just like, and they go, and they just like, and just, it's just great. They're just like, what does that mean? And like, it says like on like the Dundee wall, Tony, I'm going to fight you. And then in the Glasgow wall, it says, Tony, I still want to fight you. And it's just dumb stuff like that. And it's just, and then when we did the Glasgow one and we did the ceiling, I just wanted to kind of like add to that again. Like with the Abandon Ship bar in Glasgow, we're not over 18s. We're over 18s at the bar, but not the rest of it. So the rest of it doesn't really have any swear words in it, but the ceiling and at the bar does, because that's the only place I was like, our kids are shorter, so they can't see the ceiling as well. And there's like a warning when you go in. It's like, by the way, just so you know, there's swear words on the ceiling, but kids shouldn't really be in that section. So like, that's where I kind of like went a bit looser. Like, you don't need to swear to make the jokes, but it does. Gobshite's a great word. But yeah, just for me, it was just like writing all this stuff and just like making it super weird. And like with the ceiling as well, like there's no direction to it. So it's like, you have to like twist your head around and see stuff. So it's like really like, it's like really like weird and confusing and even more intense than the walls.
Is there not a statement where I can't remember the exact wording, but it's like, your boyfriend, your husband, blah, 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 you should murder him. And then there's a disclaimer somewhere else saying the bar staff don't condone murdering or something like that. So that's a story. So there's so many stories to all these things. So it says, stop listening to murder podcasts and just kill him already.
And then Astrid, who is like the head of like design for the bars, so she does all the interiors and stuff. She was like, I think you should probably cover that. Like, I don't want someone getting murdered and it's our fault. So I put a disclaimer underneath that the management does not condone the murdering of anyone, even if they deserve it. And yeah, it's just stuff like that. Like, it's just like in jokes and bits and pieces. But yeah, it was just because a lot of the stuff I wrote. So what I would do, so I'd have a little bit of privacy when I was doing it, because I'd have to be like up ladders and like rolling around. I listen to music when I'm doing it, and we had people working, so I was like working around everyone building the bar, because it was a massive project. So I'd go in at 5 a.m. So I'd do like 5 till 10 shifts. So I would do like 5 hours in the morning, and then by then I'm pretty burnt out. I can only usually do about 6 or 7 hours of like mural work, because then my brain starts to go a little bit weird. So I was drawing all this stuff at like 5 a.m. on my own, listening to like music or listening to murder podcasts or like stuff, just like loads of random stuff. So like a lot of the stuff I've forgotten what I've written. So I go past stuff and I go, oh, that's quite funny. Like there's like a lasso, like a lasso love heart on the stairwell, and it says "not yours" KNOT, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And I was like, don't remember doing that, but I was like, oh, I'm pretty pleased with myself on that one. It's just there's loads of stuff like that, because it was such a big project, and like it was just kind of sort of endless. It took me like 2 months to do. So I was in there last night, because I'm in the bar as much as I can be at the moment, just taking photos of stuff and being like, I don't remember writing that.
Mate, you've had so much fun with it recently, and you obviously have this 2-year plan of expanding the bars tenfold. Do you think as Rich Davies evolves even more beyond that 2 years, do you think you'll just find a way to monetize your creativity or your passions? For example, you've had barbershops, apparel companies, restaurants and bars. Do you think you can monetize any creative endeavor?
Yeah, like I think for a long time there was always that kind of thought process of, yeah, I can monetize, because that's how capitalism works. You're like, oh, well, I'm good at this, I can monetize this, or oh, I'll do this, I love this, let's do that. And then I think I'll probably try and do it less so as I get older. Like I want to have some things that are just for me. It's difficult to know. Like I've always worked in fairly like, I guess, trendy or like popular like industries. Like I've worked in the retail sector and I've seen its rise and fall. I've worked in the barbering industry and seen its rise and fall. I even had a tattoo apprenticeship for a period of time, and I've seen that rise and fall. And then the bars, there'll be a rise and fall of the bars as well. And it's all very, it's all this thing of like, yeah, that none of these are necessarily going to last forever. Like most bars maybe only have like a 10, 15 year run. Apparel brands, God, I'm surprised I'm still here at 10 years. Like that's wild. So I don't know when the end of the apparel would be. But I think realistically going forwards, for me, my future is in the arts. My future is in doing the mural work or creating, and that's where I see my future beyond the bars. Because the bars won't be forever, the apparel won't be forever. I'm 35 next month. I'd like to think that at 40, I'll know what my next step is. I'm not rushing to the next step though. I'm gonna enjoy the next 3.5 years and the game plan that we've got set ahead of ourselves, and just really sort of soak that up, because as I've said, there's been periods in my life where I didn't actually give myself time to reflect and enjoy as much as I should. Like I probably should have stepped back a couple of times when I was in Thailand or in New York and being like, this is wild. But at the time I was just like a million things to do and like running ahead with myself. And now I just don't think I take anything for granted anymore. I live in this like very surreal world that of my own making, that I just love. I just love every. Not you can't love every minute of it, but I'm definitely the happiest I've been in probably my adult life at this point, which is a higher level of success than having a lot of money in my bank.
Mate, I'm happy for you. One thing that I admire about you is how your creativity bleeds onto yourself, like the way you dress, your tattoos, your jewelry, very unconventional, especially for someone who grew up in Dundee. How much of being authentic is important to you, and like have you been ever discarded in entrepreneurialism and business because of the way you compose yourself and you dress?
Well, firstly, I don't think I've ever been. I don't think the way I look or the way I'm dressed has ever been a detriment to me. I think being a 6'4" guy who dresses weird and has tattoos and long hair now and metal teeth and all this stuff is probably to my benefit, because I'm hard to forget. And And I always try and be nice as well, which is a massive thing. So people can at least be like, well, that weird guy is at least nice. The operational director was trying to describe me to someone the other day. He's like, yeah, he's the guy that draws on walls. And the guy went, you mean the really tall, long-haired, tattooed guy? And he went, yeah, that's him. Yeah, easier to say that way. And from a point of view of like how I dress and how I present myself, like when I was growing up in Dundee, I used to get like slagged a lot when I was a kid, like crying and stuff because I would always dress weirdly and people didn't really get it. And I lost a little bit of sense of that. But obviously not that much. I've been getting tattooed since I was 17. But it took me until my 30s to really feel comfortable in what I do and how I dress. There's a lot to be said for the negativity of toxic masculinity. When I was younger, I wasn't necessarily effeminate, but I definitely wasn't a typical what people expected in the 90s to be a boy. Like I have no like sense of balance, so can't really do many sports, not very good on a bike, like not very macho, like would cry a lot because I'd get bullied and people just make assumptions based on that, or like how you dress and stuff like that, and it can be a lot. And then you put this sort of you attach like these weird like this weird anger to people defining you a certain way, so you're not comfortable in who you are. And it's like this weird thing of like, well, what is being masculine? It's such a weird concept in itself, and it's so dangerous to try and get caught up in that. And yeah, in my 30s now, I feel comfortable in what I dress. Like I've always dressed how I feel, but even more so now. Like, and lockdown kind of gave me a bit of a better understanding of that, because I spent a lot of time on my own, and I spent a lot of time feeling comfortable in myself. And yeah, I wouldn't be able to. I can't sit here and say that I don't care what people think about me, because that's not true. Everyone I think does to a degree, but when it comes to my fashion choices or how I present myself, I don't care really. For the most part, like I felt so self-conscious about wearing rings that it took me 6 years to get to the point of wearing rings daily. And I was like, why? That's so crazy. Like I've got my nails painted now. I go and me and my wife go and get our nails painted together once a month. It's like a date that we do, and we've only doing a couple of months, and you know what? It's really nice. Like, why is a guy getting his nails painted weird? It's not weird at all. It shouldn't even be a point of discussion for people. It should just be something that if I want to do it, I want to do it. Like it's no weirder than me having tattoos or having a metal tooth. It doesn't change who I am or my business expertise or anything like that. Or my perceived masculinity.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like that's my trailer clip. Based on that response and based on your reflections of our business for the last decade, if you could go back in time, the standard podcast question, if you go back in time and speak to young Rich Davies who's working in shoe 4 hours a week contracted, what advice would you give him to gear him up for the future, knowing what you know now?
It's funny you say that, actually, because I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was like, at 36, everyone should be able to go back and speak to their 18-year-old self. Like you should just be able to go back 18 years and just have a conversation and just be like, honestly, everything that you think is important is fucking dumb. Like, it's crazy. Like when you're 17 or 18, like you have all these things that you like, oh, this is like the most important thing ever, and this and that, and it's like, it's not like there's still so much to learn. And so like, don't stress and don't run ahead. Like just enjoy that. It's difficult. It's different because when I was 17, like social media was a different thing, and like and people's understanding of mental health and everything was a different thing. And I'd love to go back and like actually see what kind of state that kid was in. But from my point of view, I have no regrets about anything in my life. Like the way that like my career has transpired and the way it's all gone. There's been so many highs and so many lows, but they're shaped me and got me to where I am. And I'm not mad about that, because you know what, maybe if things had differently, I would have been here earlier, or things have gone differently, I would never have got to this point, and I would be oblivious to a lot of stuff. But this is the life that I've carved out for myself. This is the life I have. I've said I'm turning 35 next month, and I feel like it's such a pivotal point in my life. I don't know why I've got this thing. Like a lot of people stress about 30 or 40, and I'm like 35 just feels like this really nice period where like the first 35 years of my life were training. the next 35 years or more or less, whatever, is about enjoying. Like, it just feels like there's just this like this tipping point now, and it's just like I see it like almost like as an end of a chapter. And it feels very much like an end of a chapter for Abandon Ship as well, because we've been doing this for 10 years. We're coming up to the end of our 10th anniversary year, and the new bar's just open. We're opening the next bar, and it just feels like everything's kind of moving on. And I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to put an end to this chapter. And I know that a birthday is not really a thing. I'm having my first birthday party in 12 years. So that shows how much of a big deal I think it is, but I know it's not. It's just an arbitrary day. But for me, there just feels like very much a sense of finality to that part of my life. From when I was 17, when I first got that job, left college and got that job, to now, that feels like that was maybe a couple of chapters in there, but that was like part of it. And then the next bit is going to be hopefully me feeling comfortable in myself, enjoying what I've achieved and of what I've built for myself, and taking it to the next level and seeing what the next opportunities arise. Or it could all go terribly wrong and I'm working for Deliveroo in the next 6 months, and that's fine. I'll take that in my stride and see what's next.
Mate, I love that whole narrative. You, in your message to me when I asked you to come on the podcast, I think you felt compelled because your birthday was coming up to come on the podcast and be so transparent and tell the whole journey. And I really appreciate that you have came by and done exactly that. It's been a great episode. What's next for the London bar? What should we expect from it, and when's the opening?
Well, firstly, thank you. I really appreciate you asking me. Like, and yeah, it does. It felt like a really, like, if this feels like a nice part of this whole end of it. Like, it's nice to just like look back and think about everything. For the London bar, what's next with it is hopefully opening on the 9th of December. I'm not going to say hope. We're opening on the 9th of December because we've set that as a hard date. It's a smaller space than the Glasgow bar. So basically our first foot into England and into London, and it's going to be a really like nice sort of personal space for the bar. It's in Covent Garden on Neil Street, which is obviously like a very like well-known street. There's a lot of cool things on that street. There's a lot of cool things around that area. I love London. I've lived in London. I've had stores in London. It's been a big part of my career and life. So to be able to open the bar there, on our first bar there, but we'll probably end up having 2 or 3 bars in London. That's the long-term goal. But to have this space just feels like really nice. Again, it feels like a full circle moment because we had a store in Soho for 6 months as a pop-up. And just taking this to the next level and going, okay, cool. And because it's smaller, I think it'll be a really enjoyable sort of learning curve bar for us to go into the city, because it means that it'll be a much more personal experience for customers and it'll just be really nice. I'm just really looking forward to it. I won't get to see much of it until the end of November because everyone's still working on it at the moment. So I'll be going in sort of last thing to draw on all the walls once it's all up to that point. But the team's been in London a couple times the last couple of weeks, and I'm jealous of them getting to be around it. So yeah, I just can't wait. I hope to spend a lot more time in London once it opens and prop up that bar as well as the other ones. I need to pick my battles now though. I've got to try and find time between Dundee, Glasgow, and London now. So
Your 3 kids.
yeah, I know, and then the 4th one in the new year. So it'll be that'll be an interesting thing as well. Like I'm not able to just like jump in a taxi or get on a train and be in the bar. Because at the moment with Abandon Ship Glasgow, I'm trying to be in there a couple of times, if not more than that a week. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just to like jump in and have some food or have a pint and then leave, just being there for like 20 minutes, half an hour. And that'll be a different thing with the London bars and the next ones, because I won't have that opportunity. And I'm even seeing it with Dundee. Like I'm only up in Dundee maybe once a month in the bar at the moment now, because I go up to Dundee for work, but I can't go into the bar every time because usually I'm driving and it doesn't really always work out that way. So yeah, it'll be an interesting change of pace, see how it goes.
Economically, I hope I'm not in your London bar as much as I currently am in your Glasgow bar.
I mean, it's good to know when you're in London. It's good to know you've got an option to go to it. You know, it's there then. But no, it's good. It's also good to like be up against like that London competition as well. Like I love competition. I think that it's healthy. I think that with the street that we're on in Glasgow, we've benefited that street because that street's got strong competition on it. Like we're across from Sugo, and we've got Tingle, which is an institution that's been there forever. We've got Franco Manca that's just opened, which is like obviously a sort of UK-wide pizza place. We've got Diamond Dolls, which again is another institution. That neon sign is sort of iconic. And I really love that we're on that street. It just feels great, and it feels like that we're bringing something to it. And when we come to London, I hope that we can do the same. I hope that we're bringing something exciting and fresh, and that our neighbors and the community really appreciate it. That it's not just necessarily like a pilgrimage for people who love our brands, but it's also introducing people to the brand as well for the first time.
Oh, mate, I love it. If people have tuned in and enjoyed the first 35 years of Richard Davies and they want to be on a part of the journey for the next 35 years, can people reach out to you online and follow you, and where can they find you?
Yeah, of course. So Instagram's always the easiest, I guess. I have my love-hate relationship with Instagram, but that's fine. But yeah, I've got a few accounts. So my personal account is Richard_Abandon Ship. You can follow Abandon Ship Apparel. You can follow Abandon Ship Bar and Abandon Ship Art as well. And you can also check out the Abandon Ship Bar's sister bar if you're Glasgow-based, the Luchador, which is the Lucci Bar on Instagram. And that's got a secret bar downstairs called Mr. Lincoln, which we've not even talked about this. Yeah, so that's a whole other business that that we've got. That we opened that bar at the beginning of the year. We opened it. We got the keys during lockdown, so we built it during lockdown.
We can talk about that in the London Barn episode too.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, give me 6 months for loads of things to go wrong and right, and I'll come back into another one. I'll have a completely different outlook on life. I'll just be like, everything is terrible. Why was I so naive? Yeah, and I guess I'll probably need to go back and listen to that last podcast I did to see my growth, my journey in the last 18 months as well.
Oh, I love it, mate. Thanks for stopping by.
No worries. Again, honestly, thank you for having me. I enjoy doing this.